In the way that the world is, we all have cell phones, yes? Does anyone in here not have a cell phone? Probably, okay, I love it, there's a holdout over here. What we know, though, is that is how most people communicate. It is definitely how our young people are communicating. They use computers. We're happy about that. We love technology. And technology, for all it's good, does a lot of amazing things. It helps fly planes. It helps us watch movies and listen to music. It helps us communicate. I have 7 children, 2 boys, 5 girls. None of them live here in the metropolitan area. I have 2 in Tucson, 2 in Seattle, 1 in Denver, 1 in Milwaukee, and 1 in Savannah, Georgia. So if I want to talk to my family, the best way to do it is through the computer. And young people use the computer a lot. So one of the things that we have noticed is that it is a new way to communicate, it is a new way to relate. When we were young, and I'm going to throw myself into the older person's category, I turned 60 last birthday. I don't like to admit that publicly, but I'll do that for you. We used to do a thing called dating. Does anyone remember dating? You actually asked someone out on a date, you stared at them, you talked to them, you figured out where you were going, you figured out how much time. Young people don't do that as much. They kind of get together in groups, they kind of go places, they kind of just hook up and do things. That's what young people like to do, and that's the culture. Not right, not wrong, just where we've developed. So what we're finding in our culture is that young people will talk to complete strangers online. And as a result, they are talking to people that they don't know, that they think they know. And these young people are really vulnerable to people that will promise them things, like a career in modeling, or a trip someplace, or new clothes. And so, at an epidemic rate right now in our communities, we have young people accepting invitations to go places to people that they don't know about, or with people that they don't know. So last night there was a news story, I don't know if any of you saw it, on Channel 3 or Channel 5, where they arrested 17 men that were online soliciting sex with children. Now, every single time that the Mesa Police or any of the other police departments in our valley does this, is that right? That's great. That's walking all the way. So every time that this happens, there's always people who are willing to do that. Today you heard of a famous person in Florida being arrested for, right? He owns the world champion Super Bowl team. So it's not just one type of person. Unfortunately, a lot of people are online looking to arrange to have relationships. Thank you. What we don't want is people that are arranging relationships with children. So let me tell you a little bit about my background. Back in 2011, I worked for our Arizona Attorney General. And much like you, I raised my kids in the valley. I'd never seen anything like this. And a woman walked into my office and she said, you have a problem here with children being bought and sold online. And I was very skeptical. I hadn't seen it. My kids had all graduated local high schools. I had 6 kids in college at the time. And we'd seen maybe some alcohol, maybe some kids that were misbehaving. Some of our kids' friends had some drugs. But I had never seen anything like this. So I doubted it. But then the next day she came back with 2 Phoenix police officers. And at the time, Phoenix had 4 vice squads. And they said, yes, we've got real cases. And they had pictures to go with what they were saying. And so we tracked it. So from January to June of that year, there were 26 children that they recovered in Phoenix, only in Phoenix. Recovered that had been sold. And so at that point, you can't ignore it, right? So you rush down to the legislature and you say, we need to do something to protect our children. And at the time, if you did find somebody that you were online with and you wanted to do this, and you got caught, you would just take your defense attorney with you in front of the judge, and you would say, I thought she was an adult. Because our laws at the time said if you were 17, 16, 15, and you thought she was an adult, you would just say that, and it would go from a felony to a misdemeanor. So what would people do? They didn't know, and they thought she was older. That was what you would tell your client to say. So we took that out of the law. We said no more. So now, no matter what you think or what you thought, if somebody's under 18 in the state of Arizona, you are not going to get severe penalties, probably one count about 13 years. It's important that we understand that we have to draw a line in the sand, that our children are our children and that they are in our care, and that I believe that we are entrusted to protect our children. I think that's one of the most important duties we have. The children are our future. If a child is ever afflicted by this, they may recover, but the trauma that it causes, you don't get over. I will tell you, since that day, I've met over 100 survivors. Women that were sold, not all as children, some as adults, but all of them, without exception, didn't choose to do it. And I think that's another misconception that we have, is that women choose to do this. And most of the people that I met were in a vulnerable situation and felt through force, fraud, or coercion that they had to. And that's the legal definition, through force, fraud, or coercion. And fraud could be something like, I'll buy you a new car if you just go do this dance for me. Whatever it is, I'll keep it simple. Do we have an opportunity? Can we go to the first video? So last night, this was a story in the news. This was a story about the 17 men that were arrested, and what they were doing is there's no real child, so I just want to let you know, but the police pretended they were a 13-year-old girl. And this is what happened. So if you can play that video, or do you need me to do it? You need to start it?
Yeah.
Yes?
We're disappointed that so many people are still out there paying for sex with children. We're really glad that law enforcement has come together.
17 suspected child predators, including a high school football coach and a child care worker at an elementary school, accused of trying to lure kids for sex online.
The police are currently one step ahead of them, but that can always change.
Kathleen Winn says it's key to keep up with online tactics used by predators. She's part of Valley Against Sex Trafficking, a nonprofit that works with law enforcement to protect kids from predators who will do anything to get a hold of them.
Sending bus tickets, airplane tickets. We've had several of those recently where someone 18 receives a ticket, gets on a plane. We recovered that girl, but it took us about 5 days, and in the meantime, she was drugged.
The Pinal County Sheriff's Office announcing today the arrest of 45-year-old Scott Buckley of Las Vegas, who investigators say wanted to buy a bus ticket for what he thought was a minor living in the valley. The Sheriff's Office says Buckley admitted to contacting other minors on social media and claimed he had sex with a 16-year-old.
We have more and more men being captured.
Wynn, who fought for years to shut down Backpage, says the next step is targeting other websites taking its place.
We really need to understand that foreign sites can sell us our own children in our country, and we need to limit their access.
Well, police all across the state are doing these kinds of stings. The small city of Sierra Vista in southern Arizona just arrested 9 suspects accused of using the internet for child sexual exploitation. Live in the newsroom, Carissa Plano for Arizona's Family.
Okay. So that was just last night, okay, in our community. And unfortunately, this is happening all around our community. And that's not to scare you, it's just to make you aware. Because if you're aware of something, you'll start to look or see. You'll also be aware of where our children are going online. I would tell you that the buyer looks like some particular way, that they're all 17 or 18 or 20, but they're not. Their ages 20 to 80. And as you saw on this, there's teachers and coaches and police officers sometimes and firefighters and executives and doctors. There isn't one type, but what I can tell you is 99% of our buyers are men. And it hurts, and yet there are so many good men in this world. And we need men to take a stand with men. Because when a woman tells a man not to do something, it kind of sounds like your wife, or your sister, or your mother. It sounds like nagging. And the best way to change a culture for men is with men. And we need good men to come forward. And I firmly believe that this is a time for men to stand up. We need people to respect our daughters. We need people to respect women and children. They're vulnerable. And so I will fast forward to tell you that a lot of laws have changed. And in the story you mentioned Backpage. Backpage was part of like a Craigslist on a newspaper called New Times. And the owners lived here in Arizona. So about 3 years after the law changed, an attorney showed up in our office and he said that the owners of Backpage lived in our state. And he had 3 victims. He had a 13, 14, and 15-year-old girl that had been sold on Backpage. And he was committed to putting them out of business. They were in 96 countries. 96 countries, they were 80% of the world market. So we're coming up on the year anniversary in April where they were shut down by the Department of Justice. So that's pretty exciting, right? That they're shut down. It's good. That was a good day for us to fight sex trafficking. Unfortunately, they made a lot of money. They were making about $45 to $50 million a year in the sale of human beings to human beings. So what happens? People that are business people, not good business people, try to fill that gap. So right now we have people outside of our country, because it's hard to open up those sites in the country because we did do a fairly decent job at tracking that. But what we've done is we've allowed foreign sites to sell American children to us from other countries. So in China doesn't let Google in, but we let all these foreign sites into our country right now, so people go online. And I just share that because that's our next step. That's the next thing we're going to try to take on, is to limit foreign sites from having access to us. It's not to limit freedom of speech. I get that occasionally. I don't think you're the crowd. But I think it's important that we understand that people who are committed to this will continue to do this. Right now, online the internet is the playground for kids. And there's a lot of great things there, like I said. A lot of creativity, a lot of inventiveness. But we also need to make sure that kids also are out here in the real world. We have a high teenage suicide rate right now. We have a high bullying. And so, although the internet is positive for a lot of reasons, and kids aren't on Facebook anymore, only old people are on Facebook, I've been told by kids. They're on Snapchat and Instagram, and there's like 20 other platforms. And so you have to know, and they know where to go. And there's an Uber driver that I met recently, and she had 4 girls, and they were going from party to party to party. They were 18, 19, they were in college. And all of a sudden, she was taking them down this dark road. And she said, "Where are you girls going?" And she had been to one of these, and she said, "Have you heard of sex trafficking?" And they said, "No." So they got to their destination, and it was a dark parking lot. And she said, "I don't feel comfortable letting you off here." And the girl went back, and she goes, "I don't even know who this is from." So she took them, and they didn't go to that. And it turns out it was somebody who's trying to lure them to a place. So that's someone who just got into their feed on their phone. And had that driver not been aware or concerned, she might have just left them out, or he might have just left them out there. So I think it's really, when young people cross over that threshold and they're 18, they lose some of the protections they have as children. So the 18-year-old I mentioned in the story who accepted a plane ticket from somebody, she flew to Austin, Texas. And her mom put a tracker on her phone before she could go, but she couldn't stop her because she was 18. And that tracker saved her life because she was 80 miles away from where she thought she was. And the Texas Attorney General went in and recovered her, and we got her on a plane back home. But not after she hadn't been locked in. She'd been locked in a room and they had drugged her. She was about to be turned out. So, but we're seeing that more and more. People just showing up randomly from other places, saying they're 18 or 19 when they may be 28 or 29, and talking to our high school girls. So it's still happening every day. I wish it wasn't. I wish I could tell you it's not happening, but it is happening, and I want you just to be aware, not to scare you, not to ruin your evening. I'm glad you already ate dinner, though, that I'm not ruining your wonderful dinner that you just had. Wherever young people gather, people that want to get at young people also know to gather there. And major sporting events and public events. So if there's a lot of men in an event, the police like to call those target-rich environments. Because if men show up at a lot of places, a lot of this happens there. Massage parlors in town. So in Mesa, had over 215 massage parlors. Not something I want us to be proud of, but Mesa was smart and they changed their ordinance. And they made it so that massage parlors had to shut down at 10. So I like to tell people, if you can't get a massage in Mesa at 2 a.m., it's my fault. Because we all worked on that in the committee. The other thing is that police would show up and there would be no one there managing. So what was happening was they would say they were the cleaning crew. So now you're required to have an on-site manager. And just those little changes took us from over 200 down to 95. And that's a good thing. I don't even know that we need 95, but we're headed in the right direction on that. And today, the owner was in a massage parlor when he got arrested. So unfortunately, that's not everything that's going on there. And then hotels and homes. There's a new business that's where people are leasing out to have people come into their home and strip and dance. So we see that that's happening. And unfortunately, some people are hiring younger people under 18 to do that. So just some of the ways that this is happening in your community that you might not see it. The average age in our state is 14. The average age in the country that someone, so those are your 7th and 8th graders, will have their first interaction with this. So the average age someone in our state gets lured into this is 14, which is 8th grade. On the average, women do not leave the life until age of 34. Does anyone want to guess why 34? Anybody? Okay. So that's normally what happens is when people are in this life, it's a tough life. It is the most dangerous, I'm going to use this word lightly, profession in the world. The second most dangerous profession in the world is owning a liquor store. Third is being in the military, and fourth is being a police officer. So why 34 is that's the age of mortality. Most women that are in this for any length of time don't live past the age of 34. 99% of our buyers are men. I think I shared that with you. And prostitution is the most dangerous job in the country. I'm going to show, will this film show? Do I just punch it again? Okay.
Traffickers to supply younger and younger children. And she's waiting for you to notice. She's not in class. She's not safe in bed. She's not scoring the goal. She is being bought and sold for sex. But would you know it if you saw it? Shared Hope International aims to reverse this cycle. We educate on signs of trafficking, train law enforcement, advocate for stronger laws, offer shelter and services, all to stop the exploitation once and for all. So, she is in class, is scoring the goal, is safe in bed. Pretty simple.
I'll come back to this in a second. Shared Hope International is the organization that's been around for 20 years. It was founded by Linda Smith out of Washington State. Linda's the woman that showed up in my office in 2011. She's a strong Christian woman, and she was overseas and she saw trafficking happen over there, and she's the one that came back here and asked the question, well, what's happening in the U.S.? So I think that it is because of her that a lot of people across the country have learned this. They've made a concerted effort to change laws around not only Arizona, but the rest of the country. And actually, Shared Hope has impacted the world. The other thing that Shared Hope has done is worked very effectively with our law enforcement. So every year, law enforcement from Arizona have gone and gotten trained. And we have a vast Valley Against Sex Trafficking is a collaboration amongst all of our law enforcement agencies working together to do these joint operations. The operation that you saw at the beginning of this was done not only with Mesa PD, but several other police officers. When we have the Barrett-Jackson car auction, that is a big thing. One year we had the Super Bowl, the Barrett-Jackson car auction, and the Phoenix Open all in the same weekend. So they didn't sleep, I'm pretty convinced. But we also arrested 19 people that weekend. So unfortunately, we want those events. We want those events, but we want those events to be safe for our community. So I've kind of touched on this. One of the other issues you've heard about is substance abuse, right? So we've heard about the drug issue that we have going on in our state. And unfortunately, we have kids in foster care, and foster care kids tend to be more vulnerable. 92% of our kids in foster care are there because their parents were using drugs. So they're already vulnerable, and then they go into foster care, and so then someone comes along and talks to them and their self-esteem or however, and they'll sell them a dream. So we know our foster care kids contribute a lot to this population, but make no mistake, it's not just foster care kids. It's whether you're a rich kid or a poor kid, the groomers are really good at what they do. And internet crimes against children is another way. There's people that want, kids. I had my 5-year-old granddaughter visiting, and after she left, I had Daniel Tiger on my phone. Now, I don't know how she got Daniel Tiger on my phone, and it took me a week to get Daniel Tiger off my phone, but young people know how to use phones. The kids know how to use phones better than anything. And unfortunately, there are videos that are geared towards children, cartoons, that are inappropriate. And so that's how they start to get, so you really want to know where your kids are and put filters on. One of the things we're working on right now is most people don't want the inappropriate content. 80% of us don't want inappropriate content on our phones. It's only 20% of us that do. And so the 80% unfortunately have to opt out. And what we're trying to do right now is get it so that the 20% have to opt in if they want to watch inappropriate content. Okay, so we're working on putting filters on the phones, not, again, just so that you have to prove you're a certain age. You can't go buy cigarettes or buy alcohol until you're a certain age. We'd like you not to see inappropriate content, ever, but at least when you're an adult, you can make that choice. There's a lot of science about how we develop in the brain. I will share with you that when my son was 17, he was running cross country. He was at Phoenix College, and it was early morning one morning, and he cleared 5 lanes of traffic, and he got to the 6th lane, and the gentleman driving his car saw the stopped cars, went to the open lane, was going 52 miles an hour, and hit my son. My son flew 80 feet and landed on his head. I got a call from the hospital that my son was in surgery. I got to the hospital, and the doctor told me my son was going to die. My son went in for a second surgery, and they told me they had to remove part of his brain. So when you wake up in the morning, you're not ever ready to make that decision. But I authorized the doctors went in, and they removed his bone flap, and he was in a coma. And we started a long journey back. But that moment, that morning when I woke up, I knew nothing about brains or brain surgery or how brains worked or how brains heal. But as a mom, when your kid's life is on the line, you start to learn about the brain. So I spent a lot of time learning about the brain and brain science and how brains develop. And young male brains don't fully develop till you're 25 or 26. They're still growing, they're still connecting. And young girls are a little sooner, 24, 25, but the brain is still working. And one of the things we're seeing with all this airtime, with all this computer, FaceTime, is that it's affecting the brain. And a lot of kids don't go to sleep at night. But your brain needs to rest, and your brain needs to not have all this input all the time, and you need to have some downtime. And so it's adversely affecting the brain. So I'll go back to my son. They said that he was going to be severely brain damaged. And so the good news is the very next day after they said that, he woke up and he started talking. So praise God. But we were on a journey then, because then he had to learn again to walk and talk again. And he's 29 now, it's been 12 years. But I never stopped learning about the brain. His injury, frontal temporal, was to his temporal lobe. And through that process, when this presented itself, and people were saying how inappropriate content affects the brain, I kind of was already ahead of them because I knew he couldn't take too much stimulus, and he couldn't, there were things that we had to do in the healing. He plays piano, he's a very wonderful concert pianist. And that was part of his healing because he had to use both sides of his brain. And what happens is there's chemicals that are released when you're watching inappropriate content. It also depersonalizes people. It crushes relationships. Things don't come from the heart. They're just visual. So there's a lot of content out there right now that engages young men, engages men, even girls, and it just isn't an accurate representation of real relationships. And it's affecting our culture, and it's affecting how we treat each other. So I shared that story only to tell you that the brain is a very important thing that you don't see, that you need, that you have to nurture, and that you have to share. And you have to let your brain rest, and you can't be constantly going all the time, especially for young people. You need to know that you don't get another one of those. They do a lot of transplants, just not brain transplants. Not that I'm aware of yet. So, and so these are all the things. So typically, if someone's involved in one of these, there's an intersection to all the others. And I think it's really important to understand that the crime of usually involves money laundering because they're criminals. They're going to get their money, so they're going to go through our banking system. I will tell you that the Arizona Attorney General is the only Attorney General in the country that tracks. They got a big settlement with Western Union, and they track financial transactions, and they've been able to shut down pimp networks as a result of that. So we're in a great place. Arizona is considered one of the leaders in this movement across the country. I always am interested when cities fight over who has more trafficking. We don't want to have more trafficking, so I'm okay if we lose that. But we do have a lot of traffic through here from the Pacific Northwest in California. We have a lot of people moving here from California right now, and then through the West. So a lot of the trafficking occurs on our freeway system, and Arizona has a big freeway system coming through. Typically, traffickers will move and relocate people. How many of you have heard in the last month of somebody being abducted or missing, a missing girl, missing person? We've almost got it in, we're almost insensitive to it, right? It's happening so frequently. But it's something we need to be aware of, and we can't ignore those. But we're getting better at finding girls ahead of time. We're getting better at recovering. But know that people are just going out, and I don't want to scare anybody, but we have to just be aware of where our kids are and who they're talking to. It's really important. I'm not sure I want to play this because of the audience. I'm going to pass on this. I'm going to send this to you for the adults. It's not inappropriate. There's nothing in there, but I'm not going to go into this topic tonight. Okay. I kind of touched on it, but I think. So, that says thank you. I want to open it up for questions, and I realize I covered a whole lot of stuff in a short amount of time. I will tell you that the officers here in Mesa just got a mobile forensic lab that tracks a lot on computer. I get to work with some gentlemen that are former CIA, Navy SEALs that also use the internet to track bad guys that are doing bad things and have been effective in bringing down pimp networks or coaching the officers that have. So we have the good news is we're putting technology in our officers' hands so they can do things that can interrupt criminal enterprises and networks. Our county attorney is prosecuting cases. Our attorney general is prosecuting cases. So if you're doing something nefarious, something to hurt children, there's a greater chance now that you'll be caught. Are we getting everybody? No. Are there cases that don't go the way we want? Absolutely. But in order for us to be effective, we need more of you to know. This is a tough topic, so I appreciate your listening, and I want to make sure that I answer questions. There's a lot of stuff I know. I've been on this for 12 years, and I just really want to help you get access to the information because you came here tonight for a reason. I want to be able to answer your questions. So, and thank you so much. Anybody?
Anybody want to have a question?
Please. Here.
I just wondered, what can we do? I'm assuming there's some resources or, so what are we looking for?
If you, I will provide a list of websites that are safe, Shared Hope. There's one called Fight the New Drug. It's about content and access to content. I think just to know that, just to even come tonight is a huge opportunity for us to share about this. I think as long as if you're raising children, to know that other parents may not be aware. They may, I was always the mean mom. Like I always restricted access. I always had children come to our house. So I knew where my kids were. I think it's okay to be that. I think it's okay to be protective. I know it's not always easy. You want to be your kid's friend, but you really have to parent them. And sometimes being the parent means saying no. It's also understanding how this crime is being perpetrated. You used to be able to see people out on the street and you'd go, oh, that's bad. I'm going to keep my kids away from that corner. Well, the problem is with the access on the phones, anybody they can get into your home. And kids are resourceful when they want something. And kids are really good at not letting their parents know stuff's going on. That's just the nature of kids. Now, it doesn't mean all kids are devious. There's a lot of great kids out there. But the people that are manipulating them are really, really great at getting them to take incremental steps. Have any of you ever heard the thing about the frog? So if you throw a frog into boiling water, what happens? It just jumps out, right? It's smart enough to know that. But if you put a frog into cold water and you slowly turn up the heat, it'll die in that water. And that's kind of what happens with these young people is they'll start out here, hey, what do you want to do? And they answer those questions. And then the next time they go, well, oh, you want to be a model? Oh, I'm going to be in Arizona. I'd love to meet you at a restaurant and show you some portfolios and pictures of what we can do. Oh, Mom, I'm going to go to the mall with whoever. So they progress, and as it progresses, what they're willing to do, because this dream of being this fashion model's over here, although the dream is not real, they've now moved from what was safe and secure, and it was done incrementally. And we have a lot of that happening. And they're good homes, they're not bad parents, but they just didn't realize that this whole other thing was going on. I had a young girl in high school. She was in cheerleading. She didn't want to be in cheerleading anymore. She was a straight A student. But when she quit cheerleading, the other girls ostracized her and bullied her. So she met some young boy online, and he flew out here from Chicago and met her at a local resort. And unfortunately, he wasn't really 18 like he told her. And now her parents they don't even know who this boy is, and they're trying to keep their daughter from this boy, and she thinks she's in love. And young girls do think they're in love, and they want to buy into the romance. And so there's real love, and then there's what this is, and this isn't real love. And each story is a little bit unique and a little bit different, but it's always a con, and it's always something that sounds too good to be true. And that's where men calling on men to be better men counts. We also need to teach our girls that they're valuable and have worth, and that they really need to stand up for themselves, and their value isn't in the relationship, that you come into a relationship whole and healthy, and that no one gives you your value. Because these girls are looking for value, and they're trying to get it from someplace else. And I think those are more detailed conversations, but I'd love to have a group of women that want to have those kinds of conversations and be warriors, cultural warriors in the world, because I think it's time to stand up to this. We've had, this last year, we shut down, in 2018, we shut down Backpage. Harvey Weinstein was no more, and Dr. Larry Nassar went to jail. And I thought all those were good things. And we put a lot of bad people in jail who were trying to exploit children, hundreds of people. So the movement and the awareness of it is changing. People are aware that exploitation is taking place. We're actually fighting back against it. I think that we use that as an opportunity to have those conversations, age-appropriate and important conversations, but about how it's important to honor people and respect people. We need to get back to that. I think I've never seen it so not that way in my entire life. And so we're just trying to restore a boundary and help our law. I think the law enforcement are on the front lines, but you see things and you need to tell people. I think I don't know if you all live in Mesa, but Mesa's got a wonderful, spectacular police department. They work on this full time now. So it's really good, and they're doing a great job. Thank you for the question. I promise not to go that long on all of them. Yes?
So border security is a hot topic this day. What is, in your opinion, how much is that related to this human trafficking?
Typically, the trafficking that comes up through the border happens before they ever get into the U.S., so they're trafficked along the way, but the children I'm talking about are mostly American children. They're not foreign-born children. However, we do have people that are here that are brought here from other countries that are made to, we have human trafficking, which is not necessarily sex trafficking, but they're made to work, or they're locked in a business, so we have that going on also. There may be both of those going on. There's definitely some of that. We also have family members selling their own children to get drugs. There's a lot of different ways into this, and people coming over the border. A secure border creates a secure country. There's a lot of different things that happen at the border, but drugs and human trafficking are two of the things, one of the reasons we need to secure the border. Not a political statement, just I think a fact.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yes. Anybody else?
Anybody else have a question?
Yes, please. This young lady, yeah. It's a great question. So the question is there anything being done to cut down on people requesting this or wanting this? Well, by advertising all those pictures last night, those 17 men's lives have changed, right? Now, I don't like shaming people, but I think that we need to understand that once this happens to you, your life is going to change. Number one, if you're married, your spouse is going to know that you were doing something outside of the relationship, outside of the marriage. If you're not, and you get caught, you're going to have consequences. You may lose your job, depending on what your job is, your family. So there's a ultimate cost that I had a criminal defense attorney come and talk to a group of men, about 50 men, and tell them what it would look like if they got arrested. So from the moment that they got arrested, we also have churches, many churches, working with men who have addiction and have an addiction to the content. And so there's a lot of good work being done to meet men where they are and to work on healing the addiction. But we have a pretty big addiction problem right now in this country, not just drugs. We've had men that were addicted to heroin and addicted to pornography, and stopping the pornography was harder than stopping the heroin, because there's no scars that get left. There's no marks, but it's, again, happening in the brain, and it's releasing the chemicals, endorphins, and you go for that next high, and you go for that next high, and so it's a progressive thing that happens. So I think a lot of education and a lot of awareness. I'm working with about 20 churches right now that are aggressively taking on this issue and working with it with their parishioners, which I never thought I would see that like 10 years ago. But I think it's time that we're meeting people where they are and trying to get them the support and the help that they need to not do this. So I think it's a great question. Thanks from where you're thinking. Yes, did you have a question? Yeah.
Thank you for being here this evening. I am a surviving victim myself. 14 years ago, in 2006, 2007, I went through a very bad domestic violence situation. It was swept under the table, under the carpet. There was another time in 2007, I made a 911 call. A canine showed up and they were not allowed to do their job. I feel like I have been hidden. I have been used by friends. I have taken myself away from a lot of friends. But I'm going through something right now that I need a lot of prayer from people. Like you said, as far as nobody needs to be brainwashed. I'd like to talk to you privately about some things. I work at the airport, so I'm frontline. In every bathroom, there's a poster about sex trafficking. Or not sex trafficking, but human trafficking. Yeah. Exactly. So there's been some things, warning signs. I found coloring books, and I have found teddy bears and things in the women's bathrooms. When I bring it, and I've only worked there for a little while, so it's been made very adamant to me that I need to use the phone number. To myself, I've reminded myself, use the phone number. Don't approach an officer. Because when you face-to-face approach an officer, they have responded negatively. I'm not the right person you need to talk to. Don't be up here talking to my TSA officers. I'm reporting something. So
I'll talk to you afterwards about that. We have trained all the airlines, hotel workers, restaurant workers, cab drivers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, because they hear things, right? And don't be suppressed about. There'll be an appropriate thing. Kids leave teddy bears though in the thing, and everything isn't trafficking. So that's the problem. When you start looking for it, you'll think it's everywhere, and let's hope it's not everywhere. But be sensitive to older man, younger girl. They don't look like they belong together. There's tattooing that occurs. So when girls were being trafficked, there's marks that typically the pimps will brand them by putting a tattoo on their neck or on their chest or in a unique position or place. So there's dollar signs, cash money are some of the ones I've seen. So there's a lot of different princess. Not everyone that has a tattoo, then everyone got tattoos, right? So then it makes it harder to determine. But if something looks out of place or your gut is telling you this isn't right, do say, that doesn't look right to me. Or I heard them say, but don't involve yourself, please, please, please. We need no one, law enforcement, these are dangerous people. The money that someone makes, if you're someone who's selling human beings, you can make a lot of money. So for people, it's several $1 million a year, not taxed, because people get sold over and over again at night. So you just want to be careful, but please keep being aware. And if you work, TSA should be trained on the signs. But I know all the major airlines at our airport have been trained and continue to be trained. And Southwest Airlines brought our victim home for free because if you have a victim that's been transported, they were wonderful and they did a great job for us and they've been very responsive. So just know that everyone's not that way. And I'll talk to you afterwards. And thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry for what happened. And I understand. Anybody else? Yes,
Quick
please.
question. So I noticed on the overhead down like the major freeways, they have the signs that have different messages, and it said human trafficking, say something, see something, or see something, say
See
something.
something, say something.
So is there a particular number that if you do see something, you would contact?
Yes. 887 or 888-37-37-888. So I know that's numbers don't go that way, but 888-37-37-888. It's enough numbers. It just I do it that way because that's how I remember it. So basically it's 888-37-37-888. Okay. But it's easier, 888-37-37-888. Okay, that way you should know that. And that's the number to Polaris. You can also just call 911 if you think there's an emergency. Don't try to remember the number. We want people to get connected to law enforcement as quickly as possible. Our response times are still fairly good here. I want you to know that a lot of good things are being done. A lot of people are aware of this. There's a lot of survivors, women who were recovered, who help other survivors. There's a whole network of these angels across the country, and they are a stand for women. They're also a stand that men get to show up as men. So there's three components to this. There's the people that are buying. We can help impact that. There's the people that are being sold, the victims. And one of the things that has happened in the last 5 to 7 years is we identify them as victims, not as juvenile delinquents, not as bad people, but these are people that have been victimized. And then there's the sellers. And the sellers need our prayers probably better than anybody because they're the cause. They're the ones that are creating the business. So, I would tell you that prayer is something that's really important, that we pray for all three components. But I really would love to see us disappear this. This is not cancer. It's a cancer on our society, but we can cure this. And we can cure this by caring and being aware and being involved. And our young people are our future, and I'd like them to have a positive way to look at relationships and love and marriage. And I'd like this to be something that happened in the past and not something that we take into the future. So thank you very much. And I'll hang around if you've got any more questions or want to talk to me privately. So thank you. Thanks for being here.
I'm going to close in prayer, and then those of you that want to talk to her in private, you can. So join with me in prayer. Father, we thank you for this night. We thank you for helping us to be aware of what is taking place, what's going on, the aspects of it. Help us to be willing to do a part in causing this whole thing to go away, to bring an end to it, to help those who have needs, to help those who have these addictions to be delivered of it, set free, help those who have been victimized, and to help get the people who are causing the problems out of society and off the street so they can't do that again. Father, thank you. It's your hand, it's your work. We pray that you enable, that your Spirit goes before us, that you continue to equip those who are out on the front line. Father, we give you praise and glory for all the work that's already been accomplished, and may the work be multiplied by a factor of 100 in days and years to come. We give you thanks and praise in your Son, Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. I just want to tell you, I brought everybody a present, and then we've got books back here that Diane will have if you want to buy a book. It's a book that was written by Linda Smith, and it talks about the journey of discovering what this was. But these are Project 25 keychains, valuable, and they are little police cars to remind you to keep us safe. So especially the kids, these are cool. But I'd love everyone to have one. So if you'll hang on a second, I'll just walk around real quick. Thank you.